The Destiny Grimoire Anthology, Volume 2, Fallen Kingdoms. Part 1, Pursuit. Chapter 1, The Risen. The Dark Age. No one knew what had happened to the traveler. No one understood what had happened to the world, but they heard the whispered call. They came from the wild lands, gathering in secret enclaves, slipping through the howling ruins of shattered cities, hoping to find the coast, find a ship, pick up the trail of an impossible dream. From the deep black came the awoken, their eyes haunted. Exos marched in the refugee columns, cloaked in moss and shattered memories, and among them came the ghosts, beginning their search. It was a time of vast suffering and terrible evil, but there was one hope, the promise of a refuge beneath the traveler. Lady Perrin. Perrin stood at the top of a sloping, narrow path cut into a steep plateau. It was not yet dawn, and the valley below her was foggy and dark. Maybe he's not coming. This from a thin woman at Perrin's side, the mayor of the crumbling silvery ruins on the plateau behind them. We didn't want you wolves here. Lord Sagoth knows that. In answer, Perrin pointed into the valley. A red light had appeared. The mayor let out a wail. Sagoth will kill us all, or worse, he'll leave us to the fallen. Perrin shook her head. Not gonna happen. The mayor looked at Perrin, and the two titans standing on her other side. Then she turned and ran back into the village. The red lights were larger. Already the faint, choppy whine of repaired pikes filled their ears. 9 of them, said Saladin. 900. They still gotta come up the past 3 at a time. She cracked her knuckles. Easy pickings. Radagast looked at her. The north and south roads are undefended. If they change course, they won't. How do you know? It's about making people afraid. Of Sagoth and of us. Seeing his goons coming a ways off, knowing he's coming for blood, the dread is part of the punishment. Anyway, he doesn't expect we'll still be here. So he takes the west road, because it's the most visible and the most direct. Radagast frowned. Then it's time to show Sagoth that his tyranny will end. Not just Sagoth, said Perrin. She jerked a thumb toward the ruins behind her. Watchful faces poked out of the windows and around tarps. We gotta show them. The 3 of them picked up large, rough-hewn metal shields. Behind their shields, each held a worn rifle, wrapped with cloth and chainmail. The pike riders' faces were now visible through early morning gloom. A man in long red robes pulled his pike ahead as they screeched to a halt. Well, well, said Sagoth. The Iron Wolves. Cease your insults, Saladin barked. Perrin shot him a surprised look. That's an insult? I kinda like wolves. Begone, wolves. Sagoth sneered. These people are mine. Wrong, Radagast retorted. You abuse the powers a traveler has entrusted us. Sagoth smiled and shrugged. Shields up, Perrin shouted. A hail of bullets slammed into their shields. Perrin, Radagast, and Saladin slid backwards on the dusty path, but they dug in their heels, and the shields held. Return fire! Trapped in the narrow path, Sagoth and his warriors fell one by one. Perrin, Radagast, and Saladin reloaded, and then Sagoth was up again, his glowing ghost at his shoulder. He fired wildly, and a bullet struck Radagast in the head. Got him! Perrin shouted as Radagast collapsed. Covering you! Saladin returned. Perrin, Radagast, and Saladin died many more times than any one of Sagoth's men, but any time one of them fell, another would cover them until they staggered to their feet again. The shield wall held. The three gave no ground. Finally, his robes singed and ragged, Sagoth signaled a retreat. "Iron wolves!" he shouted, as his warriors scattered and a cheer went up from the people in the silver ruins. "I will slaughter everyone who has ever sheltered you." In answer, Perrin shot him again. Lord Radagast. Radagast strode through the ashes. A cloud hung in his wake as he made his way to the top of the rise. Scars marred his armor, and his sidearm lay in the dust. He didn't need it now. The battle was over. This had been a mining outpost once. A few buildings and a transport. Nestled amid a small forest, it had been like a precious jewel, set atop the dull crown of the wildlands. Now, there was almost nothing left. The warrior began to walk slowly down into the valley. He pulled his helm from his head and let it drop with a muted thud into the ash. Of the forest, only stumps remained. Of the small village, there was no trace. The buildings reduced to splinters. Here and there, you could see dull, gray signs of inhabitation. At the bottom of the valley, Radagast came to the source of the ash, death, and violence. The light bearers were laid out in a row, simple cloth covering their armored and robed forms. There were 5 of them, and they had been lined up beneath the melted girders of the settlement's great hall. These warlords had terrorized this part of the wilds for years. Hundreds had died at their hands. Radagast turned as his companions crossed the valley floor to join him. They had been policing the dead, finding a fitting end for the settlers and miners of the outpost. Jolder came with a steady glide, energy and fire. Saladin, calm and slow, the weight of the dead on his shoulders. In formation behind them stepped Perrin, her boots barely leaving a trace as she walked. They gathered before him. "Never again." He intoned the words quietly. The others stood as battle-scarred statues. "We ride against despots and warlords. We hide in these enclaves, hoping that other light-bearers will not find us. We fear each other." He shook his head, his fists clenched. "And we should not. We are stronger together. We are mighty together. All we have to fear is this." He pointed down at the dead warlords. "Giving in, allowing the power of the light to blind us to what we truly are." It was Perrin, of course, who asked the question. What are we? No judgment, no reproach. Still, Radagast could feel their doubt. He turned upwards, and his eyes settled on the massive span that supported the hall. His eyes shone as he turned back to his fellows. "We will be what the people need us to be. We will be guardians. We will be protectors. We will hold the last of us together." His voice rang out across the still valley. "Our days of hiding are ended. Say it now, each of you. Who among the other bearers do you trust? Who can be counted on to ride with us?" "Bredamart," said Jolder. "Deidris," said Perrin. "I trust only you, Radagast," said Saladin, and their leaders scowled in response. "What are you saying? What are we?" Perrin asked again. Radagast smiled. "We will gather those you trust. We will not wait for this." He gestured around him. "To force our hand. We will ride against those that could use the light against our own. We will ride against those that would use the light against our own. Humanity must have protectors, like the knights of old. Around them, the dust swirled in the air. Shafts of sunlight coalesced in long, slanted bars as the sun dipped towards the horizon. Are you with me? Will you stand with me as Iron Lords? In the waning light, their answers rang like thunder on the air. Lord Fellwinter. Deep inside a clandestine stronghold sat the dark horse Fellwinter and Chiton, warlord of the 32nd sector of Old Russia. A polished obsidian table rested heavily between them. Didn't think you'd have the courage to come back here, said the warlord. Situational awareness, not courage. I go where I can do the most good. Thank you for seeing me. Fellwinter's voice sounded as hollow as his helmet. Chiton wanted to knock it clean off the Iron Lord's bony shoulders. He could do it with a single punch. As I recall, you used to have a throne on that light-forsaken peak, till you joined up with the wolves. You're the only warlord I know who held an entire mountain. Fellwinter Peak. No one ever calls it that. The Iron Lords do. Though they did ask me to take that throne down. Chiton's laugh shook the room. How was losing territory ever a good thing for a warlord? Fellwinter folded his hands atop the table. Underneath it, Chiton made two fists, a crescent of light flickering between them. Join us and find out, said the Iron Lord. Turn your sector over to us. You can still patrol it, of course. Chiton's voice lowered. Of course. You know I'll refuse. Then we'll put you down and take your territory by force, over and over again if we have to. I invite you to my home after you abandon us, and you come to threaten me? The warlord stood, towering over Fellwinter. To broker peace. Chiton thought that even the voice behind the helmet didn't believe what it said. The floor shuddered as the warlord upended that massive table with one hand. It smashed into the opposite wall as tendrils of void light passed through it and coalesced into Fellwinter's leaping form. Chiton had seen this parlor trick before and judged that he could hammer the Iron Lord out of the air. But Fellwinter's momentum continued into a knee lift that smashed into Chiton's head as the larger man reared back to strike. The warlord fell, the front of his helm shattering. Fellwinter landed next to Chiton's prone body. Lady Jolder taught me that. I can't say the Iron Lords haven't done me any favors, the voice intoned. You know we'll burn the world down before we let the Iron Lords rule it. The large man gasped, breathing out of his mouth, his face a bloody mess. The void light in Fellwinter's hand snapped, and so did the warlord's neck. Radagast is scattered. Perrin is indecisive. Silumar wants to build a tower and hide. But they're going to change the world. No one can stop them. Fellwinter said quietly to the corpse. He parted his coat and drew a bronze shotgun. Will it be for the better? I don't know. But they mean to end the fighting, so I don't have to sleep with my back to the wall every night. Light in my hand. And that's not nothing. He paused, as if waiting for something. Normally, this is where I ask you to reconsider, tell you that you should come with me, see how powerful your light can become. But I know you, Chiton. What you do with the land you take, with its people. The other lords, especially Saladin, might let you walk away. I'm not going to give them the chance. Chiton's ghost sparked into view from above, bringing its eye to bear on its fallen charge. The warlord emerged from a radiant column, a frenzied shout at his lips. Fellwinter's shotgun cracked like thunder. Once for the warlord, and again for his ghost. The lords fall. The struggle. Fighting my brother. Fighting myself. The Siva. Consume, enhance, replicate. A tendril reaches out, crushes my ghost. I turn to face it. My boots slide in snow thick with blood. If I am gone, then why am I still here? Siva, memory, question mark, 0308. Collovance died by the tanker. Dozens of frames, hundreds, more. He cut them down until he ran out of bullets. Then he smashed them. Consume, enhance, replicate. It was not enough. The same thing that killed Collovance killed me. Siva, memory, question mark, 0309. My axis flames are almost dead. Even its fire requires fuel. I need an urn, but the Siva has already taken them. The tendrils seek them out, wrap around them, and then consume, enhance, replicate. More might swarm out to feed on anything they can touch. The Siva learns from what it consumes. Siva, memory, question mark, 0310. Ash Raven's cutting her way toward the bunker. Says we should meet her there. She's got an idea. Thinks we can hole up in there. Maybe get those guns working. Draw off enough of the enemy to give Joel's group a shot. Consume, enhance, replicate. It's a bad idea, but it's the best bad idea we have. Siva, memory, question mark, 0311. Vanala always says she doesn't mind dying because it doesn't last. A few seconds and then the light comes, bright and warm, and she rises again. Get up, Vanala. Please get up. Siva, memory, question mark, 0312. We should have been more careful. Should have never contacted the war mind. Trying to help. Trying to rebuild. Thought consume, enhance, replicate was the key. Feels like we've been fighting for days, weeks, but we're close. Once we get to the replicator, we consume, enhance, replicate. Go. I'll hold them off. Siva, memory, question mark, 0313. Fellwinter tried to communicate with the war mind, called it Rasputin. Consume, enhance, replicate. Said he could make it understand. Tell it we meant no harm. Rasputin didn't answer with words. Siva, memory, question mark, 0314. I stood at the edge of Lord's Watch and watched the enemy. Consume, enhance, replicate. Siva curled and thrashed, creating tendrils that lashed out at us. It formed shapes that could grapple us and angry swarms that buzzed around us before breaking apart to worm their way into every chink of our armor. Warlords, I know how to fight. This is consume, enhance, replicate. Siva, memory, question mark, 0315. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I don't want. Consume, enhance, replicate. Ghost. Ghost, where are you? Siva, memory, question mark, 0316. This is not my end. I have come too far to die here. I've let one unknown force make me. Now, consume, enhance, replicate. Siva, memory, 0409. Saladin. The Iron Lords came together in search of a solution to mankind's struggles. Instead, we found Siva. We dreamt of using Siva to build starships, colonies. We would become what the Traveler always believed we could. Ghost. But something happened. Saladin. Siva had been lost to time. When Timur tracked it to the Cosmodrome, we thought our quest was finally over. Siva would be ours for the taking. Rasputin responded. More than 100 Iron Lords entered the Plague Lands. In the end, only 9 reached the replication chamber. But since we were chosen by the Traveler and our cause was just, we were certain the day would be ours, until Siva took control. It infected our weapons, our armor. The corruption puppeted us against one another. In the end, Joldris sealed the chamber with the Iron Lords inside, rather than let Siva escape. A battle was won. Heroes died. And our mistakes stayed here. Chapter 2, The Fallen. We have butchers at our gates, forearmed and eager for slaughter. The Fallen are ruthless scavengers, brutal and uncaring. They arrived on their massive catches in the wake of the collapse to loot and pillage our devastated worlds. There are hints of ancient nobility to the Fallen, the scars of lost grandeur. The kells of their scattered houses still claim to be royalty, but they leave only grief and wreckage in their wake. Reese. Dreams of Alpha Lupi. This world is rich with family. You pause to rest. Life is a balm. You must cherish it where you find it. You do not mean to stay, but longing and kinship forestalls your departure time and time again. These little gardeners are such careful stewards of fragility. They sing songs of disasters averted and loved ones lost. They fashion heavy elements combed from their bones of old stars into objects of peace and beauty. You must force yourself to be cruel. Your presence is portent. From fallen ground. I am quiet. I am not here. The fallen cannot see me. They cannot know me. I am not a shadow, but I move among them, silent, deliberate of motion and intent as when I entered their hollow 1 month prior. I use the light of day to mask my own, because the forest here is barren. It's a dead place, to and fro, a constant buzz as the scavengers go about the business of stripping this world of its old glories. And I watch. I learn. I record and preserve. Their every movement is my obsession. I hang on their every word, even though I am not versed in their nightmare tongue, but others are, and they will decipher it. They will find the secrets hidden within. Secrets are like weapons, and I am an instrument of their unmaking. They are enemy, they are cruel, and I will learn and share, and they will be undone. What is that shouting? I am deep now. No telling how far in. I have tracked each meter, mapped every path, but this maze is ever winding, and their cheers now echo, violent with joy, and I hesitate to investigate as I am entering unknown corridors thick with security. Yes, this is a special place, a holy place, a mechanized place, and the shouts merge with screams and the grinding of gears, and the joy joins with pain. There is suffering here. Punishment. A ritual? I must know so we may know, and I move slow, careful. Must not be seen. Cannot be detected. Meter by meter, anywhere where cover is provided. Quick and with purpose whenever exposed. I make my way, leaving other avenues unexplored. The cheers must be understood. But eventually they die, replaced by the harmony of the pirates' busy days and nights. Oh my, how they never rest. Or rather, when they rest, others continue the work, prepping scavenger sorties, sifting through spoils, readying their fleet, their weapons, their worship. The manner in which they revere machines, I should feel safe here. I should be among their gods. Am I a machine? I don't know. I don't know anything. Their worship is not so simple. With a cacophony of excitement no longer echoing, I slow my pace but remain vigilant in my efforts to locate its origins. It is weeks before I do. Weeks before now. A ceremony has just ended, and I am sending out a recollection of what I have seen, because I am seen. These are my final moments. Of this I am sure. The ceremony is combat, ritual, and fury. It is a pit and arena where the lesser and unworthy must prove their value or suffer and die. Oh, how they fight dirty. Oh, how they fight to survive or to thrive. In this pit before the eyes of an archon, shamed Elixni may redeem themselves. Lesser pirates may improve their station. A dreg to a vandal to a captain to... This is their forge, their place of judgment, their trial before their betters. This is what we are up against. Kill or die, thrive or perish. They have no use for the weak, and they watch and cheer and scream as their archon looks on. But I have become careless. The fervor became a distraction, and now the archon's eyes have found me, and I am too deep to run, and I think he is smiling. The last frantic transmissions of Ren, a brave ghost of the spectral network. Dreg. Don't underestimate a cutthroat, or you'll get your throat cut. Dregs cling to the lowest rung of fallen society, docked at their lower arms in a ritual of humiliation and obedience. Dregs seek to prove their worth. Only a few will survive to gain promotion and regrow their limbs. Their suicidal bravery is fueled by ambition and shame. Shank. Death flies on tarnished wings. Shanks are the bulldogs of the fallen, small and tough enough to go where dregs won't fit. They scout, keep watch, and patrol. Fallen walkers deploy shanks from internal bays for tactical support and field repairs. Vandal. You could drown the city in the blood they've spilt. Soldiers, brawlers, assassins, and scouts. Vandals are the seasoned regulars who fill out the skilled roles within a fallen crew. Whether from distance or up close and personal, they are seasoned, efficient killers, with an arsenal of weaponry and tech to match their bloodlust. Captain. Waves of them smashed against our walls, hissing and wailing, but it was the one who stood beyond them, silent and scenting the air, that froze the blood in our veins. Having clawed and knifed his way to the top, scattering bodies and limbs in his wake, the captain is the strongest and most ferocious member of the crew he musters around himself. His ration of either is the largest, his blades the sharpest, his guns the finest. Upon his shoulders hangs the flag of his house, if he swears loyalty to any. For his crew, the slightest hesitation to comply earns a slash from his sword. Defiance results in immediate amputation, if he is in a good mood, or death, if he is not. Walker. Fallen walkers are mobile gun platforms deployed in offensive and defensive roles alike. Though their insect-like design gives them an eerie, almost lifelike quality, These heavily armored monstrosities are purely robotic. Their advanced tracking systems can account for multiple targets as their forward repeaters and massive main guns sweep the battlefield for threats. Mine dispensers provide close defense against dismounted infantry, and an onboard shank foundry produces armed repair drones. Walkers are immediate and deadly threats, having ended the light of countless guardians. The Fallen do not hesitate to deploy them to provide overwatch for their salvage and extraction crews. Walkers are also commonly used as blocking forces to guard key Fallen assets. At the Battle of Twilight Gap, Walkers engaged in a thunderous artillery duel with the city's gun positions. The collected wisdom of battle-hardened guardians suggests walkers can be beaten by focusing fire on the legs, overloading the walker, and rendering its armored core briefly vulnerable. When the walker stumbles, guardians should focus all available firepower on the exposed components beneath the neck plating. Some externally mounted weapons can also be disabled with precise fire. Servitor, a floating light, a sleepless eye, their hope, their faith, their sustenance. Servitors are living relics of the once mighty Fallen civilization. Packed with ultra-sophisticated machinery, they process matter and energy into the ether that the Fallen depend on for life. In battle, they support the Fallen with defensive systems and their own powerful energy weapons. Outside, they anchor Fallen comms and provide vital technological acumen. Servitors have complex relationships with each other and with their Fallen crews. Servitors are attached to a prime, a massive servitor which exists in unclear symbiosis with the Fallen Archon. The Archon conveys the Kel's wishes to the prime servitor and exerts some measure of control. Recent developments suggest that prime servitors are more than a focus of worship and logistical activity. They may play a key role in Fallen starflight. The Great Houses. House of Devils. The devils take whatever nature has yet to claim. Master Rahul. These are the scourge of the city, the shadow below our walls. This is the house that led the battle at the Twilight Gap, the house we tell our children about to frighten them into behaving. The House of Devils have now devoted great strength to pillaging the Cosmodrome in old Russia, hunting for something buried below. If they are not held in check, whatever they might find prove the city's undoing. House of Winter. Their greed is as much a threat as their blades. Commander Savala. The fallen House of Winter, led by the ruthless Kel Draxus, have been found operating in and around the Ishtar Sink on Venus. Their interests there seem directed at the ruins of the Academy along the shattered coast. But there are concerns that their focus may, in actuality, be directed elsewhere, toward the ominous citadel that rises like a warning above the waking ruins. House of Kings. Another great house hides among us. Ikora Rey. The colors of the House of Kings are rarely seen. They act with brutal contempt, as if they hold their rivals, other fallen and city alike, in disdain. We have yet to grasp the full measure of their strength. House of Exile. They live among the hive. Of course they're crazy. Cade 6. There is more than a whiff of desolation about these fallen. Their ranks are swollen with dregs, their rags threadbare. Perhaps this is a new house, gathered from the outcast malcontents and disgraced castaways of the others, galvanized by pride or hate or the desire for freedom. Be watchful. If this is true, they will surely be hungry to secure their position, and that may drive them to bold action. Part 2. Resilience. Chapter 3. Battle of Six Fronts. At Six Fronts, defending the wall was not enough. Titans had to become the wall. It was the city's darkest hour. Some Titans broke orders, but the chain prevailed. 2 Firebreak commanders led a sortie beyond the walls and reclaimed 5 miles of scorched land from the fallen. A zealous few sneer at the legends of 6 fronts. Our invincible defense was a waste, they say. We should have charged. Onslaught, verses 60 to 70. Keldrifus the Daring declaimed to his dreadmakers. Whirlwind whisked us to this war-weary world. We galloped the galaxy to grasp the great machine. It is not our fate to fail on this field. And they went, war-whooping for the white orb to the wall. Marked the marvelous manslayers who that day marched. Vililix the unvanquished, Vithrix and Vithalix, Porthus and Pithax, called Peerless and Surus Slayer, Rilix the Revenger, and Iravir the Righteous. But the brutal ones, with their bodies barred the way, the deathless dead ones they call the Didons. Verses 315 to 328. Radagast reaved 10 Rikas into Rilix's range. His death blows drove back the ranks of dregs. No numbers could negate the Didon's nerve, until Kiravix, Kingkiller, called out to the crew. Summoning her shock shooters, the sly Baroness stood against Radagast at the 12th Rika and rallied the rabble. Gunned down again and again, the gruesome Didons grew afraid, and the Didons drew back at last, defied and defeated, and marched no more into the field of the machine loyal. Then the righteous righter of wrongs rallied the rabble. Yes, Kiravix Kingkiller called for a countercharge. I wish you could witness the waves of warm-ethered warbands. The Didons drew ranks, doughty as walls of Durmatter, but Kiravix carved cracks in their undead configuration. Verses 401 to 407. Fearful were Kiravix's firebreak foes, as aback they fell. We thought the white orb, whirlwind maker, we had won. But alas, lovely Kiravix's laughter was not long-lived. Before the barriers of broad-shouldered Didons broke, she was slain, singing to the sphere, by Osirix, the Whirlix who wended his way unwatched through the warland. Remember Kiravix, the righteous, who halted ravaging Radagast. Perronel Fair's famous alliterative interpretation of an Elixni war song. Chapter 4. The Reef Wars. The belt is the key to everything. The asteroid belt is a great band of nothingness, speckled with unimaginable wealth. Once a treasure trove for Golden Age industry, the belt is now a haunted place where fallen pirates and awoken patrols skirmish among the whispering carcasses of ancient machines. Among the asteroids drifts the reef, lashed together from the ruined ships of an ancient exodus. Here the Queen rules over the awoken, the farthest known light of civilization. The Scatter. Fallen 4. This happens long ago, but not too long to matter. Ceres ruled the asteroid belt. Ceres is the white queen of this space, 400 million kilometers from the sun. Ceres is round. Round means power, out here. Nothing else in the belt is big enough to crush itself into a sphere with its own gravity. Ceres has its own chemical stars, shavings of salt and ice that glint in orbit, like a crown. There are other lights, newer stars, newer crowns, warship engines. Another queen is coming to conquer Ceres because Ceres is full of warrens and shipyards and habitats, because Ceres is round and lucky as a servitor, because Ceres is full of the wolves she wants to rule. Shark-fierce ships gather in squadrons and tribes, skiffs, ketches. The Kell of Wolves has a fleet gathered here. The Kell of Wolves heard the call and summoned the House of Wolves to prepare for the great battle on Earth. The salvation of the Kell's people depend on their ability to shatter the city. It's a matter of survival. Now the wolf fleet turns to meet the Queen. See the squadrons of skiffs wrapping themselves in stealth, cold and transparent, knifing out invisible and brave. See the ketches like broad blades, the bright thoughts of a servitor guiding them to battle. See them turning, accelerating, waking up their jammers and their arc guns. All doomed. The Kell of Wolves will never make it to the Twilight Gap. The Kell of Wolves put all that strength in one place, and now the Queen of the Reef is coming to break it. Out there, coming out of the dark, are the Awoken. Not so great a fleet, is it? Little fighters scattered around like four-pointed thorns, destroyers and frigates and salvaged hells pooled out of the reef. And right at the front, at the spear tip, flies the Queen. The Wolf Kell, practical, brave, tallies strength of metal and equipment. The Kell considers the chance that the Awoken have some secret weapon, something gleaned from hulks in the reef or whispered up by the witches, and sets that chance aside. The Kell thinks the House of Wolves can win decisively, so the Kell sends challenge and warning. I am Lord of Wolves, the Kell sends. You are an empty thing with 2 dead souls. This is my house. These are my terms. Surrender, and I will only take your ships. The Awoken fleet cuts their engines, drifts. Wolves strike elements, torpedo-armed skiffs hidden under jamming and camouflage. Find their firing solutions. The Queen's ship broadcasts. I am noble too, she says. O Lord of Wolves. The Kell doesn't mind a little banter before the kill. It gives the wolf ships longer to draw the battle away from Saris. The Kell replies. You have no line. You have no power. Captains and barons signal their readiness. Scolus and Persis and Urxus, Drevis, Picus, Paraxas, all of them bound by fear and loyalty, all ready for war. Starlight was my mother. The Queen's ship whispers in eerie, erratic radio bursts. Servitors begin to report a strange taste in the void. And my father was the dark. Here, at last, too late, the Kell begins to feel fear. Call on them, then. The Kell sends one last mocking signal before death and ruin, and see what help they offer. So the Queen calls, as only she can. Every servitor and every ketch hears it. Every captain and baron roars at their underlings as sensors go blind, as firing solutions falter, as reactors stutter and power systems hum with induction. Stealth fails. Space warps. The House of Wolves shouts and spikes of war code. Maneuvers wild, fires blind. Behind the Queen's ship, the Harbingers awaken. Scolus, captured. Varix keeps a ragged piece of armor in his pod. It's human tech, Golden Age. Shattered in some ancient battle, pre-collapse, and left to drift. He found it and he brought it to his quarters so he could sit on it. It's nothing like a throne. Varix doesn't want a throne. He sits on his ancient shrapnel, unmasked, and whittles at an amethyst with the dead edge of a shock dagger. Music plays. Something ancient, pre-whirlwind. Beautiful. The ether in the air is rich and it fills him up with strength. Scolus has been captured. Mad Scolus, who would have ruined everything. Varix should be happy. He's not. With his little knife and his 2 arms and his stolen shining thing, he feels like a dreg. He feels ashamed. He betrayed Scolus twice. At Cybele, and again, now. He will betray Scolus' dream 10 times more. Varix will never be strong like Scolus, big like Scolus, a leader like Scolus. Varix will work for the Queen, oversee the prisons, watch his fellow fallen. They are fallen. It's a good name now. Fight and die as gladiators who want nothing except a chance to hurt guardians. Even Skolas. He tried to use the Vex, word has it. He tried to use their machines. Has it ever worked for anyone? Maybe one. Maybe a few. The Osiris cultists are Varix's favorite people. Maybe that's how you survive this alien star where dead gods slumber and dead heroes walk. You cozy up to powers you barely understand and make yourself useful, or at least inoffensive. You become a parasite, a scavenger, a servant. That's Dreg's strength. That's the strength that keeps Varix alive. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Abstracts from the Moraid. Book 7, Chapter 10. The transmission was broadcasted on all fallen frequencies, lacking, at the time, the ability to crack fallen encryptions. The Master of Crows could discern only that the fallen houses were all talking to each other. That was a thing that had never happened before. Then the Techians looked earthward, and saw the fallen there becoming bolder. Tactics suggested they were planning a massive attack. We had no interplanetary arrays, no way to warn Earth. We thought we would be able to do nothing but watch. But then the wolves arrived from the Jovians. Their army was hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions strong. A dark wave that washed over the reef, rushing toward the Earth. As soon as we saw them, it was clear that if the wolves reached Earth, the city would fall. Seemingly oblivious to our existence, the bulk of the wolf fleet stopped to regroup at Ceres. The Queen's decision was this: attack the House of Wolves, thereby saving Earth, but revealing the reef's presence to any and all enemies in the quadrant. Remain silent, preserving the reef's invisibility, but allowing the city to perish. Her harbingers ripped into Ceres, destroying the asteroid and killing Virixas, Kell of Wolves, and more than half his house. The remaining wolves scattered, burrowing deep into the belt for cover. There, new claimants to the Kell ship quickly rose. Urxis, Wolf Baroness, Perixas, the Howling, and Skolas, the Rabid. Book 8, Chapter 1. After the scatter, the front-runner for the Kell ship was Urxis, Wolf Baroness. While Skolas and Perixas scrambled over the Kalic servitors, Urxis secured the command of the Orbic servitors. Their history is still unclear, but the Orbics originate with either another fallen house, perhaps one that the wolves absorbed long ago, or a modification of the Kalic servitors. Either way, the Orbic servitors held permissions on Kalic servitors, which allowed Urxis to wreak havoc among her rivals' forces at the start of the Reef Wars. Book 8, Chapter 2. What Pegasus' assault lacked in finesse, it made up for in sheer numbers and desperation. Urxis' catches were pinned against Eos, and the two sides engaged in the bloody, bitter battle known as the Eos Clash, which left Urxis dead and both fleets nearly decimated. In the aftermath, the Crows salvaged one Orbix servitor, Mecha Orbix 11, believed to be the last of its programming. Though technically a victory for Skolas, the Eos Clash came at a terrible cost for him. He docked Pegasus' arms and demoted him to Dreg as punishment for his recklessness. After the Eos Clash, Skolas changed his strategy. Book 8, Chapter 3. With Skolas and Perixas still fighting, no one expected either to attack the reef, so by the time Paladin Abra Zir arrived at Amethyst, it was too late. The Silent Fang, led by Drevis herself, had massacred almost everyone in the station, including Coven leader Pinar Venge. Paladin Zir gave chase and followed the Fang to Iris, where, behind the glare of Iris's brightness, a wolf catch lay in wait. but the catch was no match for Zir's smaller, faster ships or her ferocity. When the Battle of Iris was over, however, it was not Drevis at Zir's feet. It was Perixas. Greyer, another of Skolas's loyal vassals, had attacked Perixas' ketch at the same time that Drevis had attacked Amethyst. He too had lured Perixas to Iris, and the Silent Fang had used Iris' unusual brightness to disappear just as Zir and Perixas arrived in the system. Book 8, Chapter 4. After a string of defeats at Amethyst, at Hygia, arguably at Iris, Prince Aldrin's crows finally made headway against the wolves' encryption. They quickly discovered a seemingly unimportant piece of information. The House of Wolves had incorrectly calculated the eccentricity of the asteroid Bamberga. So Paladin Imogen Rife chased Drevis, Wolf Baroness, directly into Bamberga's trajectory. Drevis' ketch was destroyed, and both she and her high servitor, Calyx IV, were captured. It was the first decisive Reef victory since the scatter, but on her way back to Vesta with her captives, Paladin Rife was attacked at Pallas. Book 8, Chapter 5. Under Skolas's vassal Pyrrhus, called Pallasbane, the wolves amassed the largest wolf fleet that had been seen since the scatter. The queen could not use her harbingers against them. If she did, Imogen Rife and her fleet and all the people of Pallas would have been killed as well. For years the siege endured. At first neither side dared to attack the other. On Pallas, Paladin Rife knew that Perseus had the firepower to destroy the asteroid. Above Pallas, Perseus held back, hoping to rescue Drevis and Calyx IV and the other wolves that Paladin Rife had captured at the Battle of Bamberga's Wrath. The queen sought to defuse the siege by sending Armada Paladins, Abrazir, and Kamala Ryer into the Hildian asteroids where Skolas was rumored to be hiding. But with the help of his tactician Beltrick, the Veiled, Skolas thwarted them. The stalemate over Pallas was broken by, of all beings, a Dreg. Ironically dubbed Weexus the Meek, the Dreg led dozens of followers in an unsanctioned attack on Pallas. They managed to blast a hole in the Athens hull, but were stopped soon after by Commander Hallam Fen. Weexus and the surviving followers were imprisoned, along those they had come to save. Book 8, Chapter 6. Weexus's attack may have been unsuccessful, but it inspired another, deadlier assault. This time Perseus, the bane of Pallas herself, led another strike, blasting through the same Athens hull breach that Weexus had weakened in his assault. Perseus' strike team managed to free Calyx IV, but Paladin Imogen Rife cut them off outside Drevis' cell. Perseus might have escaped, but she refused to retreat without Drevis. Paladin Rife destroyed Calyx IV to prevent the wolves from recovering it, and eventually the wolves were forced back, but not before Perseus slew Paladin Rife with her own blade. Finally, Commander Hallam Fen, Imogen Rife's protege, was able to establish a line of communication with the rest of the reef. Working with the Techians and the Crows, they created an enormous visual illusion of the Harbingers, making it seem as if the Queen had finally decided to cut her losses and destroy the asteroid. It worked. The false Harbingers so scared the wolf fleet that they broke ranks. Then the combined forces of Commander Fen, Paladin Leona Brill, and Paladin Kamala Ryer slammed, capturing Perseus, Pallasbane, and driving the rest of the wolves off. Hallam Fen brought Drevis to Vesta, years after Imogen Rife had set out to do so. As a reward for his service, the queen bequeathed him Rife's place among the 7 paladins. Book 8, Chapter 7. Finally, Beltrick the Veiled left the Hildians and massed his fleet at Fortuna to replenish his catches either from the organic compounds found on the asteroid's surface. His ships landed on Fortuna one at a time, the rest forming a defensive screen around its surface. He believed that Paladin Zir would attack the screen and destroy her fleet against the shield wall. But Abrazir's fury over the battle of false tidings had chilled over the years into an icy, clever resolve. She separated her forces in two and engaged Bellatrix Vale with what he thought was her entire host. But in secret, Abra deployed her second fleet with a weapon the reef had been working on since Bamberga, Charybdis. A gravity weapon strong enough to knock asteroids off course. Charybdis caught asteroid Tynet in its beam and flung it into Fortuna, destroying both and severely damaging Bellatrix's fleet. Bellatrix was easily captured in the ensuing chaos and brought swiftly to the Queen. The fight became known as the Fortuna Plummet, as are, on occasion, the remains of Fortuna and Tynet as well. After the Fortuna Plummet, one of Prince Aldrin's crows returned with a message from a fallen, by the name of Varix of the House of Judgment. Book 8, Chapter 8. In desperation, Skolas personally led an all-out assault on the military fortress of Cybele. Little did he know that the Queen knew of his plans, thanks to the word of Varix of the House of Judgment. No sooner had Skolas' catches arrived at the asteroid than all 4 Armada paladins, Abrazir, Kamala Ryer, Leona Brill, and Hallam Fen, caught him in a pincer movement. Calyx 12, the High Servitor of Scrivix, the Sharp-Eyed, tried to escape, but Abrazir chased it down. Skolas' Cybele uprising had failed. He, Scrivix, Calyx 12, and the rest of his leaders were cast into the Queen's prison. The Reef Wars were effectively over. Book 8, Chapter 9. Varix of the House of Judgment declared Queen Marasov the new Kell of Wolves, and advised those captured at Cybele to serve her. The first among these to pledge their loyalty to the Queen was one called Savix, who was given the honor of serving in the Queen's throne room, to the right of the Queen herself. See Book 9, Chapter 3, subsection The Queenbreakers. Book 8, Chapter 10. Though many wolves knelt to the Queen, some refused to admit the war was over. A group of wolves rallied under the banner of a new would-be Kell, Velenix, called the Ravenous. But before Velenix could strike at the reef struck at him. Lieutenant Petrovenge, a corsair who had served under Paladin Abrazir during the Hildian campaign, hunted down and captured Velenix. The Fortuna Plummet, the Reef 3. Snap traffic. 225 Radiant Mirage, halt all traffic. Stand by for snap. Message to follow. Public key 080641 DWS Regal from Paladin Abrazir, Paladin Commander TF 4.1. To all task group element leaders, subject, Opalin and Fragment orders. Message is 1. Bellatrix the Veiled, HVT R3, and loyal spaceborne elements have been localized to 19 Fortuna. Bellatrix is Chief Wolf Strategist. Corsair Recon confirms that HVT R3 ships are resupplying either and performing high-tempo logistical operations. Recon elements and collabant sources agree that Bellatrix will roll one ship at a time into the resupply pocket while holding all other assets to screen. 2. TF 4.1 will attack. Targets are HVT R3 spaceborne assets. Objective is annihilation of spaceborne assets and capture, nullification, of HVT R3. Designate targets Veil Hand. 2A. Due to history of violence between Paladin Commander TF 4.1 and HVT R3, particularly Battle of False Tidings, Hildian Campaign, Bellatrix expects TF 4.1 to engage his screen directly. We will exploit this expectation. Fragment orders follows. 3. Petrovenge will detach select warships and air wing elements to form TF 4.2 mass lens. TF 4.2 is directed to engage Veil Hand screen elements with skirmishers. TF 4.2 will deny main battle while pinning down Veil Hand forces at 19 Fortuna. TF 4.2 will receive missile and torpedo assets to force Veil Hand into maintaining tight mutual CIWS or ESM support. 3A. Decisive engagement with Veil Hand in 4.2 Mass Lens AO is forbidden until Go contingency satisfied. Prioritized Force Con. 4. Remaining TF 4.1 will maneuver immediately to rendezvous with 687 Tynet. Tynet is on close approach with 19 Fortuna. TF 4.1 frigates and fighters will perform recon denial against Veil Hand scouts. 4A. Upon rendezvous with 687 Tynet, TF 4.1 will deploy Charybdis. This is a Charybdis release. Majesty Direct. TF 4.1 will maneuver in Tynet's shadow as it retrajectorizes for intercept. 5. Go contingency. Upon collision of 687 Tynet and 19 Fortuna, TF 4.1 and TF 4.2 will immediately close for decisive engagement. Veil Hand C4I will be critically degraded and all targets will be maneuvering away from mutual support. Skirmishers and Air Wing will provide tar cap and destroy Veil Hand light warships as they attempt to reform. E-War assets will isolate hostile heavy warships from C4I and spoof bad data links. Main combatants will cripple Veil Hand heavy warships and board where opportune. 6. No Harbinger support is available. 7. Good luck. The Wreath and the Queen are watching. Message ends. Stop, stop, stop. Varix the Loyal. They call me betrayer. They do not think I hear the words. Bug, insect, fallen. I hear. House of Judgment always hears. No choice. Has to keep houses together. Had to. First, the great machine. Then, sky fell away. Whirlwind ripped away the past. All honor lost. All hope. Judgment not enough. Cannot keep wolves from kings. Scar from winter. Fell to fighting. Fell to hate. Judgment gone. Others slaughtered, slain. Death and docking. Keep Elixni together. Lost to pride and rage. Traveled with the many houses before wolves. We move across the dark. Follow the light. Advise Kells. Worshipped primes. House Judgment must survive. Yes? Found the light. Too bright in darkness to hide. House Winter, attack. House Devils, plot. House Kings, plan. House Wolves, circle. House Judgment, wait. Now at war, fight for system, control the belt. Wolves Kell dead, dying. Skolas wins control of House Wolves. Attack, attack, attack. Place of learning, place of healing, put to the burn. Then siege of palace, year of cruelty. Held the line to rescue butchers, murderers, servitor. Ends with wolf fleet scattered. New tactics, detonations, blasts in civilian areas. Take the fight to them, he said. Cannot abide the hate. Uprising, they called it. Uprising on Cybele. Reach out to Crows, to Queen. Cybele attack stopped. Skolas captured. Ended House of Wolves with words. Paladins find me hiding, cowering. Nowhere else to go. No one else to be. I become Varix, the Loyal. House Judgment envoy to Queen of Awoken. No choice. House judgment must survive. Yes? Chapter 5. The Twilight Gap. In the heat of battle, Guardian, you will know the right choice to make. Lord Shax. Fireteam leaders, do not advance on the wall. Fall back to the Ridgeback district. Shax freezes with the Vandal's windpipe in his fist. He waits for Saladin to justify the strategy. I repeat, all teams rally at the Ridgeback district. Do not advance. The city is lost. Shax drops the Vandal, then empties the rest of his clip into a captain. He and his fire team are running on fumes. The dead, fallen, and Guardian alike litter the Twilight Gap. Shax, do you copy? He risks a look over his shoulder at their home, the place they call the last safe city. Not burning. Not yet. Gritting his teeth, he reloads. Shax, your orders are to retreat. He sees a gap in the onslaught of invaders and gestures to the others. Nkechi, take Abdi and Trus. Liu Feng, with me. Bray, cover us. This battlefield is not your stage, Shax. This is not about glory. His fire team doesn't hesitate. Shax, for the final time, fall back. As the 6 of them crest the wall, Shax cuts the feed. Twilight Gap. Here we fight, for the memory of those who stood. Here we die, for the glory of the light that never fades. Arena designation, Twilight Gap. Location, City Perimeter, Earth. Named for the city's greatest battle, this defensive battery once held the front line against the combined might of the fallen houses. Overrun during the course of the invasion, many Guardians lost their lives to hold the line. That the Crucible now claims this hallowed ground is seen as a privilege, a rite of passage, as new generations of Guardians stand and fight where the brave fell. Heroes rose, and legends were born. Lord Saladin, Iron Banner Rep. A hero to the city and a legend in his own right, Saladin Forge led the city's defense during the battle for the Twilight Gap. His protégés, Commander Zavala and Lord Shax, now lead the tower's vanguard and the Crucible, respectively. Saladin remains close to Zavala, though his relationship with Shax has been strained since the Twilight Gap. The Iron Banner seeks great champions to lead the fight against the darkness. It was born to honor the Iron Lords and their efforts in the earliest days of the city. Lord Shax, Crucible Handler. Lord Shax is one of the heroes of the Battle of the Twilight Gap, having led the counterattack that pushed the Fallen from the city walls, fearing that another full-scale assault would be more than the city could repel. Shax chose to stay in the city to mentor Guardians in the Crucible. One day, Shax vows to return to the war beyond the city, but only after he is confident the fires of the Crucible have forged a new generation of warriors. Gallarhorn. If there is beauty in destruction, why not also in its delivery? Faisal Crux. The Gallarhorn shoulder-mounted rocket system was forged from the armor of Guardians who fell at the Twilight Gap. Gifted to the survivors of that terrible battle, the Gallarhorn is seen as a symbol of honor and survival. Saint 14, Twilight's End. He could feel his light draining. He pulled all of it into one last hope. He reeled back and bam! His helm found purchase, breaking through just above the Kell's eyes. The ether screamed from his head, and together they fell to the ground. The Exo-Guardian rose, staggering back. He couldn't take his eyes off the Kell's body. He'd never seen any Fallen withstand a skull puncture, but this was no ordinary Fallen. He waited and waited. Ghost? The words barely audible. He heard her flash in, but had a hard time pinning her down. She was buzzing about, surveying the fallen Kell. He's dead, all right. So that's it? We're done now? He removed his helm, tossed it aside, and dropped to his knees. The devils without a Kell. This war was over, At last, they could finally go home. We are. Get me the speaker. Opening his channel. Stand by. Is that you, my son? The speaker's voice was filled with more anticipation of news than concern. It is, Father. The devil Kel Solkis is dead. This war is over. Such courage and power, the greatest ever to brace these worlds. You bring all of us peace. We will light the final flare, Devil Red. They will all know what you've done. Father, I don't think I have the energy to return. I'll rest here and come back to be honored when I return. Of course, son, but there is something concerning you? More fallen march on the city? No, not this time. I have word that Osiris was seen on Mercury, the Caloris Basin. He's turned his mind back to the Vex. Mercury. Too many channels to know. You activate one, you start to feed its veins. He threatens our peace. Your duty, my son. You must never forget. I cannot. The ghost killed the feed and waited for its guardian's words. Ghost, prepare my Vex arsenal and plot a course for Mercury. That old man is about to wake up hell. City Age. And so it is agreed. The Concordate shall no longer be recognized among the consensus. We'll begin the dismantling right away. But what of those guardians who have pledged to them? We can't afford any more banishments. I'm sure Zavala can see to their realignment. We'll do our best. Lysander chose his followers wisely. It may take some time. Lysander will not back down. He'll continue his crusade from wherever we stuff him. And so we'll need to find some new ideas to replace his. The Symmetry has been gaining a strong following. Olentan's teachings are too dangerous. Too much fear. Who knew he'd be more trouble dead than alive? We'll need to refocus our collective minds on combat. The speaker's anxious to regain ground we lost after the gap. There is the war cult. Too secretive. Have you ever tried to talk to one of their soldiers? Like a child. Answering questions with questions. They're dedicated to the war. Which one? Good question. Zavala? They seem focused, strong, more interesting than worrisome. Let's take it to a vote. All in favor of the ascension of the future war cult? Unanimous? Good. We'll grant the future war cult access to the tower and a seat among us. Ghost, please offer the speaker this proposal. Now on to the next order of business. Shax is here with another proposal for his crucible.